You are listening to the daily homily for Magdala in the Holy Land.
As Jesus continued his journey to Jerusalem, he traveled through Samaria and Galilee. As he was entering a village, 10 lepers met him. They stood at a distance from him and raised their voice, saying, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." As they were going, they were cleansed. And one of them, realizing he had been healed, returned, glorifying God in a loud voice. And he fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus said in reply, 10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God? Then he said to him, "Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I'm not sure, besides the story of the Good Samaritan, which other reference to Samaritans exists besides this particular one right now. We know there's the difficulty of going through Samaria, so that's a general story, but here we have a very concrete person, the Good Samaritan, who takes care of the broken up person on the way to Jericho, and then the leper, who was a Samaritan among the 9 others who were presumably Jewish. And the Samaritan is a religious category. It's probably also today even more tightly ethnic as well as religious. And so it's interesting that the word Jesus uses in this case for the Samaritan is a foreigner, somebody that doesn't belong to the close, regular household of faith. And there's quite a bit of difference between the Samaritan and the Jewish person in the faith, because the Samaritans accept the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, and no more. And whereas the Jewish people have the prophets and the writings. So it's interesting to see this difference also in the light of the feast day we have today of St. Josaphat, Ukrainian. And he was trying to promote the union between the Orthodox and the Catholics. And there we couldn't talk about somebody being foreign. There are national boundaries today, but they were to a great extent one people and just 2 different expressions of faith. And we also have the awareness now of this horrible war that has been protracted so painfully for so many. And it's not the only event historically so painful in the history between Russia and the Ukraine. And just imagine what it would mean for humanity, and particularly for the populations of those 2 peoples, should Josaphat's work of bringing them together in one expression of faith, what that would have accomplished. And yet some people didn't want to accept that, and they opposed it. And we listened to the first reading, the Book of Wisdom, "Hear, O kings, and understand, learn, you magistrates of the earth's expanse. You have power over the multitude, and you lord it over throngs of peoples. You have authority given to you by the Lord. You will answer for that." And in this context then of St. Josaphat, the authority is obviously the kings are, for us in our ears, they're political. Maybe in the context of the Book of Wisdom, there was also a religious category, because of the Jewish kings were people leading God's people. They were shepherds of God's people. And so we have the leadership within God's people. It's also included there. And they're leading God's kingdom. So the resistance that was suffered in the church by some leadership or some portions of the Orthodox, who then proceeded to kill St. Josaphat. He was only 43 years of age, and he became a martyr, a witness to the unity of Christians. And apparently he was very wonderfully successful. He had an incredible impact, and that's obviously part of the reason why he was eliminated then by those who didn't want that movement of union to go forward. So there's a great also scrutiny impending for those in power. That's an explicit line of the reading. And so we see, I would say, the need for intercession like the Samaritans. We're human beings with a leprosy of individualism and selfishness, a leprosy of self-pity and self-defense. And we need a heart that's renewed, completely renewed in the Lord. And we could also pray with the psalmist, and not just with the 10 lepers who are calling out, Jesus, help us, have pity on us. The word we prayed today with the psalm was, rise up, O God, bring judgment to the earth. Allow us to also reach judgment. We had those thoughts yesterday or the day before in the Book of Wisdom, to know how to judge aright, to know how to, where the priorities need to be placed, where our decisions need to be placed, what goals we are seeking in life. And again, I don't know, my heart always returns more and more constantly to education and the role of parents and grandparents in families, and how children are taught from an early age to have a very open heart like God. A heart that's not going to commit violence even to people who are hostile. A heart that's able to carry the burden of pain like Josaphat did. He was like Jesus. He accepted injustice. And we're wearing red vestments because his blood was spilt in that process. And sometimes we can become a little familiar with the process of injustice because we feel a lot of pain. And we're in a wretched situation. And maybe we cry out, Lord, bring judgment to the earth, bring judgment to my life, bring judgment to the people where I live. This is a cry of humanity. And maybe the 10 Samaritans, despite the fact that they were not grateful, the very fact that they did the intercession should inspire us to intercede for humanity. And we can intercede with them. We can be part of their voice and raise our voices in this Mass. One of the great strengths of the Eucharistic celebration is the prayer that's offered through Christ, crucified and risen, to the Father for humanity. Let that be part of our prayer today.
Thank you for joining us today. If you want to learn more about Magdala, follow us on YouTube and on Facebook.